People like to believe pressure creates heroes. What it really does is reveal who the system expects to break quietly so everything else can stay standing. It was 10:02 p.m. when the alert appeared on my monitor. No sirens. No alarms echoing through the office. Just a thin red compliance warning blinking where it had no business existing. A firewall exception flag inside a system that had already passed multiple internal audits and 2 third-party reviews. The kind of warning most people would dismiss with a shrug. But this wasn't a normal night, and this wasn't a normal system. In less than 8 hours, a $21 million federal defense contract, 18 months of work, revisions, negotiations, and security hardening, was scheduled for final submission. One unresolved vulnerability. That was all it took. One red mark. During client-side compliance validation, and the deal would evaporate without discussion, without appeal. I didn't panic. Panic wastes time. I leaned closer to the screen, scanning the timestamp again, checking the origin of the flag, forcing myself to breathe evenly. My hands moved automatically, muscle memory built from years of being the one who stayed late when systems misbehaved and deadlines refused to move. Across the room, Nathan Brooks sat at a secondary terminal. CTO. Executive badge. Authority without proximity. His jacket was off, bag half-zipped, posture already angled toward departure. He looked finished for the night in the way senior people often did, physically present, mentally checked out. "Did you see this?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. He didn't turn around. "Yeah," he muttered. "False alarm. Logs are clean." Clean logs were comforting lies. They showed you what systems wanted you to see, not what they were hiding. I dug deeper anyway. Past surface-level reports. Past the dashboards executives loved during meetings. Into the audit trails no one opened unless something was already burning. The deeper I went, the more uneasy I felt. The data wasn't wrong. It was incomplete. Carefully incomplete. Then I saw it. A vulnerability buried inside an external endpoint integration, silent, undocumented, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. No active intrusion yet, but fully exploitable. A door left unlocked because everyone assumed the hallway was empty. "This isn't nothing," I said, standing now. "If the client runs a deep compliance scan, this kills the deal." Nathan finally turned. His expression wasn't alarmed. It was irritated, the way people get when you complicate their exit plans. "Evelyn," he said, measured, patient in a way that felt rehearsed. "It's late. Things always look worse when you're tired." He unplugged his laptop. "We'll deal with it tomorrow." Tomorrow didn't exist. "This isn't a visual anomaly," I said. "It's structural." If they test, but he was already slinging his bag over his shoulder. "Get some rest," he said. "We'll talk in the morning." The door closed behind him with a soft click. No escalation. No emergency call. No second opinion. Just me, the blinking warning, and a clock that didn't care how tired I was. By 11:40 p.m., I had isolated the root cause. It wasn't a firewall rule or a misconfigured permission. It was a design flaw woven deep into the integration framework, a shortcut taken early in development and never revisited. I remembered flagging it months ago. I remembered the meeting. I remembered being told it wasn't a priority. Now it was the only thing that mattered. I called Nathan. Straight to voicemail. I messaged the security analyst. Slack replied for him, away. Back in the morning. There would be no morning if this failed. So I stayed. The office emptied completely. Lights dimmed automatically. The building shifted into night mode, as if reminding me I wasn't supposed to be there. The silence grew heavier with every hour, pressing in until even the hum of the servers felt loud. Lines of code blurred into patterns. Configuration files became terrain, every change a step that could trigger something worse. I rewrote encryption. Logic. Rebuilt compliance mappings. My shoulders burned. My wrists ached. I ignored it. Pain was easier to manage than consequences. By 1:30 a.m., the red flag disappeared. Green across the compliance dashboard. I should have felt relief. I didn't. At 4:27 a.m., a small notification appeared in the corner of my screen. Auto-sync proposal package submitted. My stomach dropped so hard it felt physical. I hadn't sent it. The system had pushed an earlier draft, unfinished, unsecured, wrong. One missing metadata tag. One oversight. Mine. For 20 seconds, I couldn't move. My hands hovered uselessly over the keyboard as my heartbeat thundered in my ears. Then instinct kicked in. I recalled the submission, barely within the allowed window. Barely enough time to fix what could still be fixed. At 4:45 a.m., I started. Over. Not copy-paste. Rebuild. Every reference rechecked. Every line verified. Hands shaking now, not from fear, but from exhaustion stacked on top of adrenaline. Time sliced at my focus. I forced myself to slow down, because rushing would end everything. At 6:28 a.m., the correct proposal uploaded successfully. No celebration. No witnesses. Just me, staring at a dim screen as dawn softened the windows. Knowing the company had come within inches of collapse, and no one would ever know. I leaned back in my chair, staring at my reflection in the black glass of the monitor. Tired. Hollow. Invisible. This was what quiet responsibility looked like. And I had no idea yet how much it was about to cost me. The confirmation email arrived at 6:59 a.m. One line. No greeting. No punctuation worth remembering. All. Approved. Great work. I read it 3 times, not because it was unclear, but because my brain was struggling to accept that something so fragile had actually held. That the thing I'd been gripping for hours, through code, silence, and sheer refusal to quit, hadn't slipped. I didn't smile. My body didn't know how to respond anymore. Relief felt theoretical, like something that happened to other people. I pushed my chair back and stood up too quickly. The room tilted for half a second, then corrected itself. I grabbed the edge of the desk, steadying my breath, telling myself it was fine. Just tired. Everyone gets tired. The hallway was empty as I walked toward the elevator. Overhead lights buzzed faintly, indifferent. The building felt hollow now, like it had exhaled everyone except me. The elevator doors slid shut. The hum of motion started, and then the world narrowed. My knees buckled without warning. Not pain. Not fear. Just absence. Like my body had quietly decided it was done negotiating. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling wasn't familiar. White panels. Harsh light. A steady, rhythmic beeping somewhere near my head. My mouth tasted like plastic and metal. A nurse noticed me stirring and moved closer. You fainted, she said gently, adjusting something at my wrist. Do you know where you are? I nodded slowly. Hospital. Downtown. The memory came back in fragments. Elevator. Darkness. You were severely dehydrated, she continued. Blood pressure dropped fast. Your body shut down. Shut down. Like a system hitting a hard limit. Later, Dr. Melissa Grant came in, calm and efficient, clipboard tucked against her side. She didn't scold. She didn't dramatize. You pushed too hard, she said simply. No food. No water. No rest. Your cortisol levels are extremely high. She paused, looking directly at me. You need at least 48 hours off. No laptop. No phone. No decisions. I let out a weak laugh before I could stop myself. That's not really an option. She raised an eyebrow. Is it life or death? I didn't answer, because the truth was complicated. To me, it had been. Around early afternoon, a nurse returned with a lunch tray and my phone. You have a few missed calls, she said. Want me to put it on silent? I picked it up. 3 missed calls. All from HR. No message from my boss. No check-in. No one asking if I was okay. Just an automated Slack notification that blinked onto the screen while I watched. Team reminder, please complete your time logs by 5 p.m. today. Thanks. Time logs. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to process the absurdity. I had given the company nearly 40 consecutive hours of my life. I had collapsed on their way out the door. And they wanted a time log. The door creaked open quietly. I looked up, expecting a coworker. It wasn't. It was Mr. Howard Jenkins, the night security guard from the office. Late 50s, kind eyes, always carrying a thermos. He stood awkwardly near the foot of the bed, holding a small grocery bag. I saw them take you out this morning, he said. Thought I'd check in. I blinked, throat tightening. You didn't have to, I know, he said with a shrug. Didn't feel right not to. He pulled out a bottle of orange juice and a sleeve of crackers. Didn't know what you could eat. That was it. That was all. No corporate concern. No executive visit. Just a man who'd noticed I was still there when everyone else left. Thank you, I whispered. He smiled. Just rest. They'll manage without you for a day. We both knew that wasn't true. After he left, I sat quietly, juice unopened in my lap, staring at the blank white walls. For the first time in days, I didn't open my laptop. I didn't check my email. I felt my body again. Every ache. Every knot of fatigue. Every tremor adrenaline had been masking. A nurse passed by later and paused at the door. You okay? I nodded, then hesitated. Does this happen often? She tilted her head. Exhaustion like this? Yes. Especially with people like you. Like me? She smiled gently. Quiet ones. High performers. The ones who don't ask for help. I was discharged the next morning. The second I stepped outside, sunlight too bright against my eyes, my phone buzzed nonstop. Slack. Emails. Missed calls. One calendar invite stood out. Subject: Transition Discussion. Location: HR Conference Room, 4th floor. Attendees: Evelyn Carter, Victor Langford, Stephanie Wu. HR, Transition Discussion. It sounded formal. Important. Maybe even good. I let myself imagine it. Recognition. A promotion. An acknowledgement that someone had noticed what I'd done. I wore my navy blazer. At 8:50 a.m., I stood outside the conference room, folder in hand, heart beating faster than it should have. I was early. Prepared. Hope is a dangerous thing when you've been invisible for too long. The HR conference room was always too cold. Not cool, cold. The kind that settled on your skin and made you aware of your own breathing. The blinds were drawn, shutting out the morning light, and the long table looked freshly wiped, but the chairs hadn't been pushed in properly. Like someone had left in a hurry. Like this wasn't meant to be comfortable. Stephanie Wu from HR greeted me with a polite smile and a tablet tucked under her arm. "You're early," she said. "I wanted to be prepared," I replied. She nodded once and opened the door. Victor Langford was already seated. He didn't stand. Didn't offer a hand. Just looked up briefly, acknowledged me with a nod, then looked back down at the papers in front of him. No agenda on the table. No folder with my name. No presentation screen. The small spark of hope I'd carried with me cracked, but I forced myself to sit up. Straighter. We all took our seats. Silence stretched. Victor cleared his throat. "Evelyn," he began, voice calm and carefully neutral, "thank you for joining us." That was it. Not "thank you for your work." Not "we appreciate your efforts." Just "thank you for showing up." "We've made the difficult decision to eliminate your position," he continued. "Effective immediately." The words landed without sound. Like something heavy sinking underwater. I didn't respond right away. My chest felt tight, like the air had thinned without warning. Stephanie leaned in slightly, her tone softer, rehearsed. "This decision is part of a broader structural adjustment. Your severance package has already been prepared." Prepared. As if this had been decided long before I ever collapsed in that elevator. I tried to speak. But my throat refused to cooperate. My mind scrambled, replaying the last 48 hours, the code, the submission, the email confirmation at 6:59 a.m. This didn't make sense. This conversation belonged to someone else. Someone who missed deadlines. Someone who coasted. Not me. I reached into my folder with shaking fingers and pulled out the printed copy of the revised proposal. The one that secured. The contract. The one I had rebuilt line by line in the dark. "I submitted this," I said quietly, sliding it forward. 3 days ago. It secured the deal." Victor didn't even glance at it. "Yes," he said. "We're aware the client approved the proposal. We appreciate your contribution. However, the company is shifting focus." Stephanie nodded in agreement. "This isn't a reflection of your performance." Then, what was it? I looked down at the document still sitting in front of me. My formatting. My analysis. My annotations. And then I saw it. The author line at the top. Submitted by Nathan Brooks. The room seemed to tilt slightly. I stared at the name, my brain refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. Nathan hadn't stayed. He hadn't patched anything. He hadn't rebuilt the proposal. And yet, there it was. "He submitted this version," I said slowly. Victor raised an eyebrow. "We're not here to debate authorship. The project succeeded. That's what matters. That's what matters." In that moment, something inside me fractured, not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly. Like a bone snapping under pressure after holding too long. I realized then that I had never been seen as a person in this room. I was a function. A resource. A line item that had served its purpose. "Can I ask one thing?" I said. Stephanie nodded. "If I hadn't caught the security vulnerability," I asked, voice steady despite the tremor in my hands, "would this deal have gone through?" Victor exhaled. "That's speculative. What matters," he added, "is that it did go through." That was my answer. They continued speaking, severance terms. Non-disclosure agreements, equipment return, but their voices blurred together. I stood slowly, folding the document back into my folder. "Thank you," I said. They both looked surprised. I just needed to know where I stood. I walked out before either of them could respond. In the hallway, the air felt warmer, but I still couldn't shake the cold clinging to my skin. As I reached the elevator, the doors opened to reveal Maya Reynolds standing there with 2 coffees in her hands. She froze when she saw my face. "Hey," she said softly. "Everything okay?" I shook my head once and stepped past her. The doors closed. I returned the next day after lunch to clear my desk. No announcement. No email. I didn't want a scene. I just wanted to disappear quietly, the way I'd always existed there. The office buzzed with Normalcy. People chatting near the kitchen. Someone inflating balloons for a birthday celebration down the hall. I walked past coworkers I'd worked with for over a year. None of them looked up. My desk was exactly as I'd left it. Sticky notes still clinging to the monitor. A half-full water bottle. A hoodie folded beside the keyboard, used as a pillow more times than I cared to admit. I packed slowly. At 2:15 p.m., a Slack message popped up. Maya, just heard. Please tell me this is a mistake. Before I could reply, someone cleared their throat behind me. Ethan Moore stood there, holding a manila envelope. Awkward. Nervous. I just wanted to say thank you, he said. You stayed late to help me fix a deployment last quarter. I never forgot that. It meant more than anything Victor had said. I turned off my monitor and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. Was I really that easy to erase? At reception, Linda Perez took my badge and looked up at me with concern. You're leaving? Effective today. I'm sorry, she said. You were always kind. The elevator doors slid shut. And for the first time in years, I wondered if I had ever mattered at all. The days after I left didn't feel like recovery. They felt like suspension. I wasn't sleeping, but I wasn't awake either. Time passed without weight, without direction. Morning light came and went, and I barely noticed. I didn't open my laptop. I didn't check Slack. I let messages stack up unread, not because I was overwhelmed, but because I didn't know who I was supposed to be answering as anymore. Work had been my structure. My proof. Without it, everything felt strangely hollow. I spent most of those days on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly like detergent and stale coffee. The television stayed on, cycling through documentaries and reruns, but I wasn't watching. My mind kept drifting back to the conference room, the cold, the silence, the way Victor hadn't even looked at my work. The way my name had already been erased before I ever sat down. Anger came in short flashes, sharp but fleeting. Mostly, there was numbness. A quiet, sinking realization that I had been loyal to something that had never been loyal to me. On the third day, Sunday afternoon, at exactly 4:27 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long moment, thumb hovering over the screen. For days, every notification had felt intrusive. Demanding. This one felt different. Intentional. I answered. Hi, Evelyn. This is Richard Hale from Lauren Defense Systems. My chest tightened. Do you have a few minutes to talk today? I'll keep it brief. Yes, I said, too quickly. Anytime. He called back at 5:02 p.m., precise as always. I'll be honest, he said after a brief pause. We just found out you're no longer with Virion, and it caught us completely off guard. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure what I was allowed to say. You were our point of confidence, he continued. Not the brand. Not the executive team. You. The words landed slowly, carefully, like he understood the weight of them. You saved our timeline, Richard said. You caught issues their team didn't even know existed. Without you, this contract doesn't make sense. My fingers curled into the fabric of the blanket. We don't feel comfortable proceeding under the current structure, he added. Without your oversight, we're reconsidering the entire deal. He wasn't threatening leverage. He was stating reality. I shouldn't put you in this position, Richard said, but would you be open to a conversation with another firm? I already knew the answer before he said the name. Renex Tech has reached out, he continued. Nothing formal yet, but if you were involved on their side, we'd move quickly. Virion's biggest competitor. My heart pounded, not with panic, but with something sharper. Recognition. Vindication. If you're open to it, Richard added, I'll make the introduction myself. When the call ended, I sat perfectly still, phone resting in my lap, the room suddenly too quiet. For the first time since I'd walked out of that building, the fog inside my head thinned. Someone hadn't just noticed my absence. They felt it. That evening, I left my apartment for the first time in days and walked a few blocks to an old bookstore cafe I used to work from years ago, before late nights became mandatory and weekends disappeared. The bell above the door chimed softly as I stepped inside. Hannah Blake. The barista looked up and smiled. You're back, she said. Haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, I replied, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. I think I needed to disappear for a bit. She nodded, like she understood more than I'd said. I took my favorite corner table and opened my laptop for the first time since leaving Virion. Not to check email. Not to look backward. I plugged in my external hard drive, the one I'd always used for offsite planning. Not company-owned. Not protected by any NDA. Just years of frameworks, contingency models, architectural logic I'd built quietly, carefully, never expecting to need them outside those walls. A folder stared back at me. LDS Core, Evelyn. I hadn't opened it in months. Inside were the bones of the entire project. The original integration logic. The compliance flow diagrams. The fallback systems I designed in case everything else failed. The work that had actually saved the contract, long before that final all-nighter. No one else had ever seen this in full. As I clicked through the files, memories surfaced. Catching a handshake misalignment at 2 in the morning. Rewriting endpoint encryption because Nathan had insisted the vendor patch was good enough. Being told to stop over-engineering. Good enough had nearly cost them everything. At 10:08 p.m., my phone buzzed again. An email notification. From Ethan Moore. Subject, you deserve to know. My stomach tightened as I opened it. I know this is risky, he wrote, but this got passed around dev chat earlier. I pulled the original from an archive before it disappeared. You didn't hear this from me. Attached was a single audio file. I stared at it for a long moment, then pressed play. Victor Langford's voice filled the room, distorted slightly, but unmistakable. She served her purpose, he said. The contract's done. No reason to keep her on payroll when we can trim that line item and shift the credit. A pause. Another voice, Stephanie from HR, sounded uneasy. She's not just some contractor, Victor. A scoff. Now she's excess. The word landed like a blow. Excess. Not underperforming. Not redundant. Excess. The recording ended. I closed my laptop slowly, hand steady despite the storm in my chest. Anger came this time, but it wasn't wild. It was precise. Focused. I hadn't been fired because of strategy. I hadn't been let go because of restructuring. I had been removed because I was no longer useful to them. Once the credit had been reassigned. Something shifted then. Not revenge. Not bitterness. Ownership. I spent the next 5 hours rebuilding, not code, but position. I reorganized my archive, stripped it down to its strongest elements, polished it into something undeniable. A clean, professional proposal outlining my infrastructure strategy, adaptive compliance logic, and the safeguards that had stabilized Lauren's systems. By morning, I renamed the folder, Evelyn Carter, Strategic Infrastructure Proposal, Confidential. I sent one email. To Richard. No emotion. No explanation. Just the outline, attached. I'm prepared to lead this transition properly. I closed my laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. For the first time since I'd been labeled excess, I felt something solid beneath me. Control. Monday morning didn't feel like a comeback. It felt like alignment. Sunlight spilled through the narrow window of my apartment, soft but insistent, illuminating the small desk in the corner that had never felt like enough until now. My coffee sat untouched beside the laptop. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because for once, I wasn't rushing. I wasn't bracing for impact. I was steady. At 9:12 a.m., my phone rang. Richard Hale. I've spoken to them, he said without preamble. Renext is interested. Very. There was no triumph in his voice. Just certainty, the kind that comes when a missing piece finally clicks into place. They want to speak with you directly, he continued. Their COO. Karen Whitman. I told her you don't waste time. I exhaled slowly, feeling something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Not anxiety. Not anticipation. Control. You told her correctly, I said. The call came an hour later. Karen's voice was sharp and efficient, shaped by years of high-stakes decisions where hesitation cost millions. She didn't soften her tone. She didn't waste words. Evelyn, she said, Richard has been very clear. You were the backbone of that contract. I didn't deflect. I didn't minimize. I've reviewed your proposal, she continued. It's precise. Clean. No unnecessary language. No ego. That was intentional, I replied. I prefer clarity over optics. There was a pause, brief, deliberate. Good, she said. Because we're not interested in optics. We're interested in execution. We spoke for nearly half an hour. Architecture. Risk exposure. Compliance timelines. Transition safeguards. I didn't oversell. I didn't posture. I spoke the way I always had, calm, exact, grounded in the work itself. The way I never could inside Virion without being told I was too intense, too thorough, too much. At the end of the call, Karen didn't hesitate. If you come to Renext, she said, you lead. Full authority. Title, team selection, direct access to the client. No middle management buffers. No dilution. My heart picked up. Speed, but my voice stayed level. I have one condition. Go on. I'm not interested in spectacle, I said. No public drama. No smear campaigns. I'll deliver quietly, professionally, and correctly. She laughed softly, not dismissive, but appreciative. That's exactly why we want you. The paperwork moved fast after that. Faster than I expected. Faster than Virion could react or recover. By Wednesday morning, the transition was complete. Lauren Defense officially shifted the contract. The announcement was brief, clinical, just a statement about strategic realignment and leadership continuity. No mention of me. I didn't need it. At 10:14 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from Maya. Is this about you? The contract shift? I stared at it for a moment, then set the phone down. I wasn't hiding. I just didn't need to explain myself anymore. At 11:02, Ethan left a voicemail I didn't answer. They're in crisis mode, he said quietly. Victor pulled the exec team into an emergency meeting. No one saw this coming. I believed him. Inside Virion's boardroom, the question surfaced the way it always does when consequences arrive too late. Why did we fire the person who built the system? There was no good answer. Only silence. Only hindsight. Only the slow realization that some decisions can't be reversed once the wrong person walks away. By the end of the week, Victor was under internal review. Not because of me, but because decisions like his always leave fingerprints. They stack. They rot. They surface. I didn't follow the fallout closely. I didn't need to. I had already moved on. My first day at Renext arrived quietly. No speeches. No welcome banners. No forced enthusiasm. Just a badge with my name and a title I had earned long before anyone was willing to say it out loud. Director of Defense Integrations. At 11:01 a.m., Richard joined the secure call. Good to see you where you belong, he said. We finalized the compliance addendum. My framework. My logic. My safeguards, untouched, undiluted. And credited properly. At 11:57 a.m., I signed the contract. This time, there was no ambiguity about who led it. Later that afternoon, I sat alone in my new office, real walls, a real door, a quiet that didn't feel lonely, just earned. I opened a blank document and typed, project code name, Phoenix lead, Evelyn Carter status, active. I sat back and let the moment settle. Not victory. Not revenge. Completion. That evening, as the city softened into golden gray, an email appeared in my inbox. From Victor. We'd like to discuss the possibility of you returning in a senior leadership capacity. I read it once. Then again. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't even feel tempted. I felt finished. I deleted the email. Some doors don't need to be closed loudly. They just need to stay closed. As I shut down my laptop and watched the city lights flicker on one by one, a final thought anchored itself deeper than all the rest. They expected me to break. Instead, I built. And sometimes, the most powerful response isn't retaliation. It's walking away with everything they underestimated still intact, and never looking back.